Hello, this is Amory from Mali, and I'm going to explain the different type of webhooks that we have and we use to communicate with your backend after verifying a user. So as you can see here, we have various types. So I'm going to go over them for a few minutes and explain exactly what's the purpose of each webhook and when do we send these webhooks. So this is the flow, simplified of course, of our web SDK. But the logic is really the same, whether you use the Web SDK or iOS SDK, Android SDK, React Native integration, Ionic, whatever, even the API, the logic is always the same. So basically during the flow, the users will upload some biometrics and some documents. Whether it's a passport or a driving license, doesn't matter. We have different webhooks. So as soon as the pop-up is open, we basically create a new identity. And so this is why you will receive a webhook called verification started. And so this webhook informs you that a user started the flow of Mati. There is another webhook, which is, let's go to this one. When the user finishes the flow, so on that screen, when the user is completely done uploading everything, then we have received all the information. And so this is where we send to your backend a webhook called verification inputs completed. And so at that point, your backend is aware that the user has finished completely the Mati verification process, okay? Another webhook is the verification expired. So let's say a user for some reason starts the flow on Web SDK or iOS SDK or Android SDK, and in the middle, that user goes, I don't know, do something else. You know, they have to take the kids for school or something. And after 30 minutes, we will, if the user has not finished the flow, then we will fire a webhook called verification expired to inform you that the user has not finished to upload his inputs, and we are shutting down the verification. Another one is step completed. And so step completed is every single time that we finish a verification step, whether it is about face match or liveness, or alteration detection, watch list, and all the other ones, we will send you an update saying that that step has been done. And so this is how you can listen to very specific events. If you, let's say, need to integrate, let's say, the OCR data sooner to, pre-fill a form or something, this is how you can do it. And finally, there is the verification completed webhook. And this is when Mati has performed 100% of the identity checks on the verification, and so we inform you that the verification has been completely processed. And so when you receive that webhook, your identity is either approved or sent to manual review. I'll explain that later in the video. So here are the 5 webhooks that we send to your backend related to the verification of a user. Again, we send these webhooks whether it is the Web SDK, iOS, Android SDK, even the API, the logic is exactly the same. I will add also that specifically for Web SDK, iOS and Android SDK, or other integrations for mobile, we send different events or callbacks. Again, the logic is the same. So we inform you when if the user exits the flow for some reason, when the user is finished, and when the process has started. And so that's a way for your front end to be aware of what is happening with the user, so that you can use both the backend and the front end to make your logic in your web app or mobile app to move on to the next screen or show a different permission. So you can use these events or you can use the backend. The last webhook we have is from your dashboard in the identity details. If you modify a field in the identity and click on send webhook, you will receive that webhook on your backend, verification updated. And so this is basically to sync your backend with the latest value of the identity, so that if you change the status, if you change the fields here, you will receive the latest information. So now I will basically show you a few examples of these webhooks. So stay with me, there's only another minute. So these are the webhooks that we send. So there's just a few here, it's just an example. But as you can see, this is verification completed webhook that contains the metadata that you send from the front end. And you also have the resource URL. And so the resource URL contains all the information about all the verification checks. So I'll show that to you in a second. And you also have finally the status. So the status can either be running, which means that we're still processing some checks in the identity, or it can be review needed, which means that something went wrong with the identity. Maybe we think that some fraud has been committed, or it can be approved. And in that case, you can just automate the verification. That's another one, which is verification expired. That's another one for step completed. So as we can see here, this is the step completed for document reading. So you can see the different, like the different values from the identity card, the full name, document number, date of birth, etc. Right? So now you can ask, how do we get the information about all the details from the verification of the identity? And so this is really inside the resource URL here. So this is a sample of a resource URL. So I'll skim through it quickly. It starts with the device fingerprint here. And so this is information about what type of device user has been used, what type of OS, what type of architecture, like CPU architecture. And then we go into the verification steps. And so it starts here with the steps, the biometric steps. So here you have basically the biometrics, so it can be either nothing or selfie and liveness. So you can check everything here. And then you have the document checks. And so the document checks here, as you can see, there's template matching, face match, document reading. So you find these fields again. You have alteration detection, watch list, and we always keep adding more. For instance, in Mexico, we have more checks that are from the government and local databases. So you will find more details into the documentation. So I encourage you to read the documentation. The fields here are the latest field from the dashboard. So that's pretty important to understand, because you have the fields from the verification. So these are the initial fields that the Mati could read and extract. And then if you need, for some reason, to modify these fields, then they will appear into fields. Again, you can modify these fields into your Mati dashboard. So that's pretty much it. And I hope you enjoyed this little introduction. And there's more videos. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.